Welcome to the Intentional Life podcast, where it's all about real strategies, real tools, and techniques to help you truly become the author of your life story.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
We're so happy to be back. And without further ado, this week, what Camilla and I decided to speak about is something that we feel is pretty much the foundation of the quality of our lives, and it is relationships. Because if you think about it, life in general is all about relationships, whether it would be with our romantic partners, with our kids, with our friends, with our family, with our coworkers. Wherever you go, you cannot avoid dealing with people and, dealing with whatever issues or miscommunications that come out of us not being able to be either present in relationships or being able to communicate clearly in a relationship. So really, everything revolves about relationships. And we feel like if we bring a little bit more intention into how we process and how we behave in relationships, we could really improve the quality of our lives in general.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's a topic that I'm particularly excited about, being a relationship coach. I also feel, like Wilma said, that it is really a lot of times at the bottom of another presenting problem, where when you dig a little deeper, it really comes down to a relationship problem that's underneath. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So I would like to start off by presenting a framework to you that can really help you to lead your relationships, be it with your intimate partner, which might be the focus of the talk, but really know that it's relevant for all of your relationships, and just to lead them with more intention, which is what this podcast is all about, right? And the framework is called the 4 Ps. So it's easy to remember. Now, what are the 4 Ps? Well, the first one is purpose, right? So I always recommend my clients to create a sort of purpose statement for their relationship. You know how companies, they have a mission statement, right? Well, it's kind of like that. So it's supposed to guide you towards your ultimate goals for your life together, whatever it is, just your ultimate purpose for that relationship and according to your shared values. So, take a moment real quick right now and ask yourself, when you think of, let's say, your intimate partner, what is your ultimate intention and wish for that relationship? What would you like it to be like? What would you like it to feel like? Just reflect on that for a minute. Yeah, because, we spend so much time focusing on what we don't want, right? We talk about what we don't like about the other or about our situation. So the focus is on the negative and on the lack. But in order to live and love with intention, you need to get clear on what you do want and then keep that really present in your mind, right? So again, I encourage you to think of and really write it down, your mission or purpose statement for your relationship. And then it's a great tool because every time you are, for instance, in an argument or you're about to say something, to criticize something about the other, just take a second to stop and ask yourself, will what I'm about to say or do help me to fulfill my ultimate purpose for this relationship? Or will it actually distance me from that goal? So always keep it present, and it will really shape the way you express yourself and you treat the other person too. And, you can do this for yourself. It's already really helpful. But obviously the best thing is to do this together with your significant other and to discuss it and to just make sure that it's really that you are on the same page. And when one partner, slips in some way, to just lovingly remind them, this I think is not aligned with our relationship purpose.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I don't feel like people do this enough or even apply this concept, but truly I think a relationship could sometimes, in some aspects, be looked at as if it was a partnership, like from a business perspective, like as if it was a company.
Yeah.
Because just to add to what you said, I love the purpose thing. And I think not only is it important to define what the purpose is for your relationship, but at the same time, it's important to take time and review whether, whatever is happening within your relationship is on track with the purpose that you have defined with your partner. One of my favorite ways to do that, and this is a concept that was introduced by Chloe Madanis, was to basically organize for the couple, ideally once a week, sort of a dinner, for instance, right? A romantic dinner, so you could get away from your house, taste some interesting food, and be in this neutral environment where you could organize, she calls it executive meetings. And I adore this idea because it's almost like it allows you to step out of the everyday life and almost look at your relationship from an observer perspective. And what she would advise to do in these meetings is basically for the partners to spend some time noticing throughout the week what it was that they felt like the partner did that maybe upset them or annoyed them. And like Camilla said, not to necessarily react straight away, but just make a note of it and bring it to the table when they go out for their executive dinner meetings, right? And then because, they are not in the situation anymore, I feel like the emotions are much calmer then. They would have had time to process it a little bit more. And what they can do, they could literally tell the partner, that incident when, someone so-and-so invited us for dinner and then you refused, that really made me feel uncomfortable. And you could even apply the concept which comes from sales, which I love, and I apply it everywhere, which is go through three sort of phases. First of all, for the executive meeting, you don't only need to talk about things that didn't work throughout the week. You could also talk about things that you love that your partner did, or you want to compliment them on something. So maybe even start with that. Start with what worked for you
that's
last
great.
week. Right? Be like, what? I loved when you brought me that, coffee to bed, and I felt like really loved and taken care of, and so on and so forth. So you start like, with, with putting in the love and spreading, even calming each other down. So both partners could take, time and take turns telling that to each other. What helps, maybe even taking notes throughout the week, because sometimes we forget, we are so busy. So just taking the time to actually jot down or record, voice notes for yourself, so you would have that evidence, what you actually appreciated. Then you could move on to what didn't work for you. So like I said, really express calmly what was something that maybe triggered you or made you like feel not appreciated, whatever it may be. There are, throughout the week, we have so many occasions and interactions where we may feel low because of what our partner did or say, or sometimes did not do, right?
Yeah.
And then you could finish with calmly discussing what you would do different, which is, what, if this situation occurs again, and probably will, this is what I'd like you to do for me, or this is what I will do for you next time, knowing now that this is how it made you feel. So in that way, basically, you have this, a really pleasant executive meeting away from home. You can enjoy food, a glass of wine, and really calmly discuss it as if it was business, because that's what business is about, measuring, right? This worked, didn't work. If that didn't work, what could we do about it differently? How can we change the strategy, or maybe adjust the purpose even, right? Because clearly it's not, what we thought that it was initially. So that's
Yeah.
kind of one of my really, really great advices that I think a lot of couples could really benefit from.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, right. So should I go on with the second P?
Yes, please.
Cool. Okay. So the second one, the first one was purpose. The second one is pause. Now, that is so important, guys, because oftentimes we interact with each other by reacting, right? So when you're reacting, you're not in control. You are reacting to something. You're not creating something from within. You're reacting to something on the outside, right? And there are so many triggers. I mean, we get triggered all the time. oftentimes we're not even conscious that this is happening. So it could be a word or a tone of voice that your significant other is choosing. It could be, their body language. It could be a certain scenario that just triggers something in you for whatever reason. And when you get triggered, two things happen. The first is that we fall out of alignment with our ultimate relationship purpose. And the second is that we lose control over our thought action repertoire. So we'll likely, we snap back, we counterattack, we scream, we insult, we explode. We're not in control of, what we're putting out there anymore because we're in reaction mode. And most of the times, or, many of the times, we'll feel badly afterwards anyway, either because we didn't even mean to lash out at all, and this isn't where we wanted the argument to go, or because we realize in hindsight that we could have reacted in a much better and in a more effective way. So the antidote to reacting is pausing. Take it a moment to take a step back, to reflect on your next move, on your next word, so that it may be intentional. And sometimes it will just be a second of you, for instance, asking yourself about the relationship purpose that we just talked about. Or other times, if it's a bigger deal to you emotionally, you might have to leave, take a walk. And I don't mean storm out and slam the door and say that you'll never come back, but just let your partner know that you'll need to clear your head and ask him or her to postpone the rest of the conversation to a later stage when you both calm down, right? That's actually a very, very mature way to react. So really there is so much power in a pause. And when you make pausing a habit, you'll notice incredible positive shifts in your relationships.
Yes, it's very, very useful. And I think a lot of the times it's probably one of the hardest things to do when you find yourself in the heat of the moment and you really want to tell them everything you feel, and also exaggerated times 1,000. You really feel the urge to communicate everything that went bad in this particular situation, and also 10 years ago, whatever happened and when you were hurt. So I feel like it's really important to pause and make sure that, exactly like you said, Camilla, that you stay intentional. And I think there's also at times a lot of if we take a family, right, where say two partners live together or have kids, a lot of passive aggressiveness I feel happen when two partners have not necessarily spoken about and divided their responsibilities at home. And this is again, and that's what causes a lot of passive aggressiveness. And that's where people make these comments to each other. And one of, again, a tool that I like to suggest to you, or all like an exercise, which is I found something that really works for couples, is again, look at their chores, or look at the things that need to happen for a family to function well. So be it planning the holiday, taking the trash out, doing the grocery shopping, cleaning the house if you don't have a cleaner, whatever it is that needs to happen. And then sit down with your partner and divide the responsibilities, where one of you basically would be the CEO of this part of your life, and the other one would just be basically helping you out when you can't, say, perform these tasks for one reason or another reason. In that way, for instance, if, you say your husband would be responsible for taking the trash out, and then you saw in the morning that he didn't, you would not have this whole drama in your head, how he never takes out the trash, how it's always you who has to do it, become passive aggressive. When he talks to you normally, then you would snap at him for no reason. There would be no pause. But then if you knew it's his responsibility, it would be like, oh, okay, so he didn't do it now, so probably he'll do it in the evening because he's the CEO of taking the trash out, so it's his responsibility. I know he always does it. So there's no need for me to freak out about it and be upset about it for the rest of the day, right? And I feel like that's really, again, almost taking the business perspective at it and really making sure who's responsible for what. And I think that really helps to avoid a lot of petty, really fiery conflict.
Yeah. I love that. And it reminds me, the director of my son's previous preschool, she would always tell parents, you guys are the CEO of the most important company in the world, which is your family, right? So she really wanted the parents, to kind of take on this role with the same responsibility that they do, that they would, the role of a CEO at a company. So a lot of times we just hearing the title CEO, right? It makes you take it so much more seriously sometimes, doesn't it? And also, it reminds me now that when you were talking about the executive meeting, I guess just by calling it that, and by taking it outside of the home, like Vilma said, that's really important, so that it's a different setting. And then it also has a beginning and an end, where you discuss potential problems even. But yeah, just by calling it that, how would people show up to an executive meeting, right? Wouldn't it be showing up prepared and with some kind of structure in their heads? And so I think that's a really nice. It's a great way to bring the business, some business elements into our personal lives and our relationships. I really love that advice.
Totally agree with you.
All right, so let's go on to the third P, which is presence. Now, being in the present moment is incredibly important, and I think we stress that probably in every episode, but it's also very, very difficult, I know. And a lot of times when we feel miserable in our relationship or we get into an argument with our significant other, it's actually because we're not in the present moment with them, with our thoughts, right? So where are we instead? Well, we might be in the past. We might be still hurting over something he or she did or didn't do, and that we cannot let go. So for instance, your significant other might have lied to you about something in the past, and since you haven't forgiven him or her, this event, it still lingers in your mind, right? And so you might say things like, well, unfortunately, I learned a long time ago that you can't be trusted. Or, well, you've lied before, so why should I believe you now? And you bring this past baggage into the present moment. So really, you're not fully present. You're not fully listening to what the other one is saying because you're drawing from this past story, right? Well, if you're not in the past, you might already be in the future. That also happens a lot, that our thoughts wander to a future scenario that causes us to feel stress or anxiety. And, you might be thinking, oh, if he or she doesn't do this for me, then our relationship will be doomed. It can only get worse now. And, soon we'll just have drifted apart. A lot of times we start catastrophizing things like that. And just think that a symptom of the right now, or maybe of a phase that you're going through where, for instance, you have a newborn baby, or one has a particularly high workload or is going through a career change. So those are phases where things can change, and you will notice different symptoms of that change. But sometimes it's better to just stay in the present moment and analyze what is happening right now and not make conclusions, catastrophic conclusions for the future. Right. So when we're not in the present, we might be in the past, we might be in the future. A lot of times we're in somebody else's relationship. Does that happen to you? And I think it happens to everybody. We quietly compare our boyfriend to other boyfriends and our wife to other wives. So, we might be thinking, all the other husbands do this. Why is mine not able to? Or we might be thinking, well, if my friends knew about my boyfriend or girlfriend is that they're acting this way, they would be shocked. They would not accept this kind of behavior. I would be so embarrassed if they found out. Right? So these kind of thoughts where we're not in the present moment with the person that's opposite of us. We are in someone else's relationship. And then fourthly, we also might not be in the present moment because we're so busy, telling ourselves a story in our own head, oftentimes based on our limiting beliefs. Remember, guys, we recently did an episode on limiting beliefs. So if that resonates with you and rings a bell, definitely go back and listen to that one. And we might be just projecting our inner lack or something from our inside onto our partner. Right? And when we're in that state, we're not open and we're not able to see the reality. And I do like a little quote unquote here with my fingers that you can't see, because I actually think there is no reality. There's just a bunch of, personal subjective realities that coexist next to each other. But yeah, so when you're so stuck in your own story, you are absolutely unable to see what's going on. You're not even giving the other a chance. It's like when you anticipate that they will, forget about something, or that they will, for instance, not do something well, right? Then you'll already be feeding yourself that story. You'll be focusing on it, and you'll definitely find again that they haven't done it well, because you didn't even give them a chance to prove you wrong. Make sure, and I know it's hard, but it's so important to try and really be grounded and anchored in the present moment, because that's the only time that we can actually be effective. We can't change the past, we can't change the future. Our relationship is not someone else's relationship, and your partner isn't a projection of your inner unresolved issues or your pain points. So just, come to the present moment and try at least to see things for what they are.
Mm, that's a huge one. I feel like presence is huge, in each of our lives in general, but then when applied to relationships, even more so. So I think it's really good that we're covering it here. And while I think both partners and both feminine and masculine energy crave for presence, I feel like for female, having a really present partner is even more important. And a lot of the times I hear some other coaches say, a lot of females, they crave for presence, not presents, not gifts.
Oh,
The
right,
biggest
yes.
presence, right? The
Yes.
biggest presence for a woman sometimes is a man who comes back after work and really gives them that undivided attention. Because while women have what is called diffused awareness, meaning that we can concentrate and be aware of different things at the same time, men on the other side of the spectrum tend to focus on one thing at a time. So if they tell you that they're listening to you, but you see them scrolling on the phone or reading a newspaper, you can bet your ass, excuse my French, that he's not listening to you, because they're just designed a little bit different. And again, disclaimer, there are a lot of different situations and different people, but generally this is how sort of we are wired. And for all those men who are listening, or maybe even females who would like to explain men how it works, is really important that you guys would give your woman that gift of presence. Because if you do that, then she will feel noticed, and she will open up, and sensually, sexually, emotionally, she will be noticed. And I think it's really true that women are a little bit like flowers, and they do crave that water in the form of attention, right? We are like that. I mean, I'm trying to avoid cliches, but it is true that having a man who's really, really present with you, even if it's just half an hour, like, it really helps us to calm down and feel noticed, and
and to
not
connect, right?
to connect. Yes, because we're open then. We don't feel like we need to be protective or resistant, to what they're saying, because we feel like we're really being seen, right? And nourished.
So guys, this is just really a little hack that we're gifting you here, to half an hour of presence in the evening, for instance, if that's the time that you have together, and the results, well, they will speak for themselves.
Yes. Or maybe if you are really busy in the evening, for instance, I used to work with this woman who basically would get up really early in the morning to make breakfast just for her husband. So even before the kids would get up, she would get up with him really early. And even though she didn't have to, because she was working later, she would get up, she would make him coffee, she would make him breakfast, and then they would quietly just have that breakfast, talk about the day, like really connect before all of the madness of the household kicks in, right? Because they knew they wouldn't have that time in the evening. So there was both of them basically making the time for each other to be present. No phones, sometimes no TV, just two of them really enjoying each other's company. And I thought, what a beautiful way, to really make it a priority. It's not, when people come back to us, to Camilla and me, and they say like, but you don't understand, I don't have enough time. And again, we have, I think, a podcast episode about that. It's not
Yeah.
about whether you don't have enough time, it's what your priorities are and whether you are willing to make connection and presence a priority in your relationship. And I think
Mm.
that can really truly happen.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Yeah. So also, just a little to add real quick, that with presence also comes a different way of listening to each other when we're really present, and I think listening, I don't know if we mentioned that before, but I always think about that. Obviously, as coaches, we're really trained to listen and to also, sometimes read between the lines, to really pay attention to the words that our clients use and the way they express things, because it all reveals something about what they're going through. And I think one thing that is definitely missing for most of us is deep listening, active and deep listening, not, finishing each other's sentences or assuming that you already know what they're saying, but just really paying close attention to what they might be trying to say, but cannot, so digging deeper. Oh, so why do you feel this way? Asking some question. That's what active listening does. You ask more questions to really get to the bottom of things. So yeah, I think that also has its place here when we talk about intentional relationship. And now to just finish up with the 4 P's. So we had purpose, pause, and presence. And the 4th would be posture. So, right, like your body language, right? And that has 2 effects that I just quickly want to mention here. One is an inner effect. So, for instance, when we breathe in deeply, when we pull our shoulders back and we stand or sit up straight, we send signals to our body, right? To for instance, be more present, to be more relaxed. So there is our posture does really affect the way we show up, even emotionally. And then the second one is the outer effect, because our body language transmits subconscious things to the other, right? And to the other person's subconsciousness. So we all know about the crossed legs and, eye contact. But really, when you know your partner so well, the people that we know best, we might not even actively and consciously pick up on things, but we just know their body language so well that we will even know intuitively whether they're speaking the truth, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable now, right? So you don't even have to do something very obvious or to say something very obvious for the people that know you best to pick up on signals that you're sending out. And if your body language doesn't match the words that you're saying, the other person will receive mixed signals, right? So just pay attention to that also, and make sure that your posture, your body language matches what you're trying to communicate.
Yeah, totally. And also, I think probably it's to be added to this part is the tone that you use.
Also,
A lot of
yes.
people get very triggered if, say, even if you're communicating rather non-offensive things, but if you're doing it in a raised tone, people get upset and triggered, and it doesn't matter what you say anymore. It's because how you say it, they get upset with you. So I think
Yeah.
also being probably taking a pause and noticing how you speak would really help you as well to communicate your point across um, with that part. And also, I think another final thing that I like to cover here, and it's kind of connected to posture a little bit, is intentional conflict resolution. Because I feel like, a lot of silence treatment and quiet resentment and passive aggressiveness within any relationship comes from not staying centered and intentional in a conflict situation with your partner.
Right.
And probably this is the hardest thing to do, like we said before, when you're in a reaction mode, but it can reap so many benefits if you decide with your partner that you're going to try, because it's a lot of trial and error. It's not going to work every time, but you at least try to be very intentional whenever you feel like you get into that situation where you need to discuss things that are not necessarily pleasant or where you have completely opposing opinions about certain things or decisions you have to make, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to really quickly walk you through it. It's based on a lot of different concepts, but I try it out myself personally. I give it to my clients, and I feel like that's a really beautiful thing to do. So first of all, let's say there's a situation when a client basically comes to you and they're upset about something and they want to speak to you. So the first thing that you could do, as opposed to already getting triggered by the fact that you can feel that they're upset with you,
Yeah.
because that's when happens, be like, okay, what's wrong again? Uh,
Mm.
so instead of doing that, pause and create that space for them and let them vent if they have to. Let them talk. And let them talk and don't interrupt them, and really apply, like Camilla mentioned, the intentional listening skills by being in the neutral position and staying curious. So don't go straight away into trying to protect yourself, explain yourself first. Let them really speak out everything that they have been feeling or everything they've been upset about or something that they really want you to hear. And when you feel like they've already expressed that, even, a lot of the times I heard feedback from men saying, well, but females, they're just, repeating themselves over and over and over again. And it's the same point. Yes, let them do that. If they're still repeating themselves and saying the same thing in different words, it means it just matters to them so much that they feel like they need to reiterate that for you in different words. So it's not that they think you're stupid. It's not that they want to offend you. It's just part of the way they work and part of their own process of dealing with emotion or something that upset them. So when you feel like they're finished with expressing what it was that they're upset with, then it would be really nice and I think polite to ask them if there's anything else that they'd like to add. Because a lot of the times people start talking over us when we feel like we're still not finished and we just maybe took a break to gather our thoughts and see how we could express ourselves clearly without offending them, right? So ask them again if there's anything you'd like to add. If they say no, like I expressed it to you, then what you could do, I think this is a very important step, and I think that's something that we don't do a lot, but it's magical, is basically try and summarize what they just told you from your point of understanding. Because we have so many filters. Like Camilla said, there's no such thing as objective reality. So sometimes a partner expresses something and we understand it completely different.
Yeah.
Because our upbringing, background, wounds, limiting beliefs. So it's really important for you then to take time and say, did I understand you correctly that what you said and you were upset about is A, B, C, D, E? If they confirm that to you, then again, it's very important point, I think, to really acknowledge that you hear them and that they have a right to feel upset about this. You don't have to agree with them, but it's really important to validate that they are upset about this. And from their point of view, the way they see the situation, they do have the right to be upset. We all have the right to be upset, right? We don't need a permission for that. But sometimes we just need that validation from someone like, I hear you. I can see you're upset. I'm sorry that you feel like that, without any, eye rolling or, making fun, like sincerely just saying, I'm sorry that you feel upset about this.
And even if they are upset with you, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. It might, but maybe it's just their own triggers. So if you can still say, okay, I hear you are upset with me over this and that, and I feel very sorry for you. You're not acknowledging, like you're not taking the blame or anything. You're just validating them, as Wilma said.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, exactly. They just need the validation. They don't want you to agree with everything. And you shouldn't, because probably their story is very biased, just like your story is very biased. So it's not about, trying to prove who's right, which I think in a lot of situations we try to do, like prove that we are the correct one in the situation. There's never such a thing. And if you feel like your partner has calmed down after they express themselves, after you repeated it to them, what they're expressing, after you acknowledge to them, then ask them if they're okay if you try to explain your side of the story, how you view this, how you feel in this situation, and then ask them to do the same for you. Basically repeat it and acknowledge that your side of the situation is also valid, right? And I feel like if we go through this process, by the end of it, it can take from 10 minutes to 2 hours. There are no rules. I feel like by the end of it, both partners seem to be heard, validated, and calmer. And that's when you can, take a break, take some tea, stretch, hug, connect, and then sit down and brainstorm together again what we could do the next time when this situation appears, because it might not be the same, decision that needs to be made or the same exactly situation, but probably it will come up just wearing different clothes. So will be something similar. So
Exactly.
what can both of us do or agree on that we will do for each other when this comes up? And I feel like just doing that and really deciding, committing that both of you will try to basically execute the next time the agreement that you made now, it can really make your relationship grow. And it makes you connect, makes you believe and trust each other that you're safe to express your point of view or even unpleasant emotions without basically someone being very defensive or then launching into attack on you, right? Because it's not going to
Mm.
lead anywhere. And I
Mm.
feel like just communicating openly with an intention in this situation could really relieve a lot of tensions in general. Because again, I feel like just like with everything in life, it is the lack of communication that usually creates a lot of problems when we assume things, over exaggerate in our heads, start attaching different meanings to things and so on and so forth. So I feel like this is beautiful, beautiful exercise if you can only agree with your partner. You can't force your partner to do that. So basically you need to ask him to be able to do that with him, right?
Yeah.
Which is sometimes can be a struggle in itself, because some people can be resistant, be like, well, I don't have time to walk through all these steps. But it's important to see that it's very, very valuable for a couple.
Yeah, and even if you can just start with one step, right? Repeating, reframing. So I understood that you were saying, even if it's just that really doesn't take any time, it's better than nothing. Just take one of the steps. And
Yeah.
while you were talking, I was also thinking, oh my God, we have to mention this here also when it comes to intentional relationships, to really stop taking everything so damn personal. That is easier said than done, but I think even if you can just pause in between and calm down, even if it's just for a second, right? It can already help you. Just having this empathy and understanding that even if your partner is upset with you, it might not be your fault. It might just be something that you triggered in them, and vice versa, right? Because usually when we get upset about things, it's not so much about the person that's doing them. It's really about what this person is triggering inside of us, and knowing that, having a little more of compassion, and taking yourself a little bit out of the equation and less seriously, so that it doesn't have to hurt so bad when they say something painful to you, that you don't take it, like 100%, this is the truth. They just called me, I don't know, like some swear word. No, maybe it's just, the scenario. Maybe it's something that they're going through. Take everything a little less personal, and you can achieve that simply by pausing and by being present.
Yes. Amen. Amen,
Ah,
sister.
so we gave you a lot of tips, you guys. So, well, let's quickly recap, shall we? We walked you through the 4 Ps, which is the relationship purpose, to always bear in mind where are you ultimately headed, to pause before you react, or better said, as an antidote to reacting, to stay present. When you're talking to your partner, and especially women value that a lot, but it's really very important to everyone to be present in your interaction with others. Don't be with your thoughts in the past, in the future, in someone else's relationship, or in your own head. Try and be present here and now. Check your posture, and also think of those clever, exercises and tools, such as the executive meeting, where you take your important, family or couple discussions to an outside place, outside of your home, a meeting where you show up prepared. You can talk about things. It doesn't have to be problems. It can be good things. Then Vilma mentioned the CEO method, which I really love, putting some business elements into your relationship, and a clever and healthy conflict resolution. and then finally taking things less personally. I think that sums it up, doesn't it?
I think that's a great start. And again, just like with everything, it's easier said than done. But you guys, nothing that is worthwhile keeping or that could really change your life is going to be easy. So we
Mm.
have to, I think, as a collective in general, stop looking for ways and hacks because it's so common now.
Yeah.
Two short ways how to
Oh,
basically become the
yeah.
most attractive woman in the world. It's not going to happen like that. You're going back to the basics, and these, things, they take time and practice and intention, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, those moments where you want to just basically not do it anymore, but it's about like sticking through it, staying intentional, staying present, and being very clear, like having a purpose of what you want to achieve and how you want your relationship to be, because we cannot leave our relationships just to sort of evolve by default and
Mm.
like live their own life.
True.
Just like with business, therefore purpose is important, strategy is important. How do you want it to look like? Do you feel like your relationship is lacking passion or whatever excitement anymore? What can you do about it? It's up to you to form and shape your relationship and drive your relationship. Not there are not going to be some magic fairy godmother who's going to come in and make your relationship perfect. It's up to you. So we
Exactly.
really want to inspire you and share these tools with you that are working. This is not something that, we kind of read in the books and be like, well, good luck with that. No, this is something that actually is quite simple, straightforward, but it works.
Yeah, exactly. Let's stop looking for easy and quick and let's start looking for things that actually work. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah. So please make sure you implement at least one of them and let us know how it went. Let us know how your
Yes.
partner reacted, whether it worked, what their comments. Because a lot of the times I feel like when females sort of learn these things, they go back to their partners and they implement them. And the partner is actually really happy with that. Camilla, I think you had one partner of your client message you and
Oh,
tell
yes.
it.
That was so
Tell about
sweet.
that.
Yeah, because it is enough sometimes to just change the behavior of one and then the
Mhm.
other one will follow. It doesn't, and also it's good to be proactive. Don't sit around and wait for your partner to change because unfortunately you have no influence over that. But you can, not even change. It's not about changing. It's about improving maybe, right? The way you treat each other and the way you show up. So with this episode, I think we set you on a good path, and we'd love to know how it's working out for you. So we link our contact details in below, and you can always reach out to us.
Yeah. Thanks a lot
Thank
for tuning
you.
in, for
We'll be back
listening.
in 2 weeks.
Yes, go to work, you guys.
Exactly. All right.
Okay,
Speak to you
bye.
soon. Bye. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and do let us know how our tips are working out for you. You can find our websites below, and we'd love to virtually meet you there.